Blog Talk Radio. Chatting with Nat is a podcast for independent women seeking to speak their truth and to break down barriers. We host honest conversations that help to guide and empower women. Speak your truth and set yourself free. Let your voice be heard. Hi everyone, it's Natalie Genius, it's Natalizo, and today on Chatting with Nat, we have singer-songwriter Tess Posner. Tess Posner is fast-rising indie pop artist whose sound brings powerful vocals, haunting melodies, and atmospheric rhythms together to bring the listener on a journey to deep places. Tess started singing in coffee shops as a teenager and released her first EP in 2018. Tess sees art as a way to heal and paint a picture of a better world that could be possible. Art can change the world by helping us feel and imagine new worlds that don't exist yet. Love that. Tess's honest, dark, and politically conscious lyrics have attracted attention, and her single New Angels was a semi-finalist in the International Songwriting Competition in 2019. Let's give her a round of applause. How are you, Tess?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. So how have you been during this entire crazy of an existence, pandemic, elections, all of it?
Well, it's certainly been a wild ride, to say the least. I am very, very fortunate to have kept my health throughout this time, and most of my family has as well. But yeah, it feels like it's been going on for forever, and there's a sense of like timelessness. I'm not sure how long we've been in this pandemic. I think it's been 2 years, but it feels like 100 years. I don't know. Bizarre.
It's sometimes you just don't know what to say anymore, because every time you turn around, you think, okay, we're rounding the corner here. COVID has babies just sprouting around everywhere. So I'm here to say, so you have baby Delta and now a baby Omicron. It's just annoying. But they said, you know what? This is the new normal. You can't really shut it down. I think it's almost like having the flu. Although these are just a little bit more severe, so people should get vaccinated. I understand those that don't want to, but hey, you want to live, you want to live. So one of the questions I like to ask everybody is this. You know, the pandemic has afforded us a lot of time to think about life, think about our purpose. You know, really, there's an aspect of self-reflection that has occurred for many, whether you're in the music industry or you're in another type of industry. And, you know, during this time, I saw the oddest things. This shouldn't be odd, but, you know, family members walking with their kids. They were all, you know, there was downtime. People, you saw them all over the place. And I was like, well, this is weird to me. I didn't see a lot of, you know, I had friends that decided to cut back on work hours because they realized they weren't spending enough time with friends. I read several articles that talked about how people decided that they were going to quit their jobs because they wanted to do something that was more in line with their passion. It wasn't about money for them anymore. You know, people started to realize that, yeah, life is short, but life is really, 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 really short. The pandemic has showed us, obviously, there's been pros and cons. You know, the self-reflection is a pro. The con is the death and the sickness and the losing limbs and stuff like that. Climate change. Obviously, Mother Nature and the animals were happy that we were not on the earth inside. Well, we were on the earth, but not outside. Climate pollution levels went down significantly. And as artists, you know, we took the time. Some people created new EPs, singles, rebranded themselves, decided not to do music anymore. But, you know, they wanted to be more of an effective player in life. So did you take time to think about that? Did you decide just to stay the same? Has there been any difference in the way that you want to be perceived as an artist? What did you think about?
Yeah, it definitely was for me and for many people, like you're saying, this confrontation with our mortality and really thinking about like how do we want to live our lives? And that's a really important question, and our life often doesn't slow down enough for us to ask it. So I think that was, one small positive from the very difficult and challenging time. But yeah, I actually made a pretty big decision during this time, and I was in this amazing experience running a nonprofit company that's focused on helping women and people of color get into the tech industry. And it's just been this amazing, wonderful journey that I've been doing for 5 years, since the very beginning of the company. And through that time, really started to discover my voice in music and found this passion that really I didn't know was there. It was like unearthing this secret hidden part of myself and this voice that was just buried under what I thought my life was going to be about. Okay. So during the pandemic, I made a decision to actually go into music full time, which was jumping off this cliff into a totally different pathway, and really, like you were saying, reflecting on what do I really want to offer the world and how do I want to change things given this new perspective that we're in today. So it was a pretty big jump, and I'm really glad that I did it. And I'm very grateful to have that opportunity to find that part of myself that I really wanted to reconnect with during this time.
Awesome. I would high five you now, because I left my job for several reasons, but one of the reasons is to do music full time with no money. But sometimes you have to take that leap of faith. Music is my passion, just like yours. I want to be an effective player with my music. I think, like I tell everybody that comes on the podcast, that music is our superpower. Music has the power to heal, to move mountains, to move energy in the world. People listen to the music for many different reasons. For joy, they want to laugh, they want to cry. They listen to it when they're angry. They want to express some type of emotion. And so if we can do that, if we really focus our energies on what we're meant to do, and music is just within us, then we are doing what we're supposed to do in this world, and the world will be a better place. So kudos to you, high five for you for wanting to do music full time. Now, what was it that you saw, you heard, that made you want to get into music? What was it that defining moment that you said, well, Tess and music has to be together. I just have to do this. This is who I am.
Yeah, well, it actually started when I was about 11 years old and I first got a piano, and I was singing a lot. I just loved to sing. I had a karaoke machine, and I started playing Beethoven and other things on the piano and just absolutely fell in love with all of that. And I really wanted to go into music at that time, and I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to just immerse myself completely, and I was starting to do that a little bit. And, several people in my life that I think were well-meaning, but didn't really know what they were saying, they discouraged that and kind of said, well, music is too hard or it's too difficult. And I think they were coming from a really good place, because they were trying to maybe protect me from some difficult parts about it. But as a result, I sort of put that dream away and recently have unearthed it again, because it never really died. It was just kind of put aside. And, really getting into songwriting about 4 years ago was really what drew me back in, because there's something about telling our stories. And you said it right at the beginning in your introduction about speaking your truth. And there's a way that you can do that in art that is incredibly powerful and can make an impact. And I've seen a lot of women, especially, you know, not be able to speak their truth because we've been punished for it, or we've been literally like, you know, not able to do that because of being oppressed in various parts of the world or in history. Right. So I'm really drawn to this idea that, you know, in art, we can remind people of that permission to speak that truth and to find that part of ourselves that really wants to be heard despite what society tries to push down.
Amen to that. Now, how important is it for you to be authentic in your music and your life?
I think for me, it's very important because that's how I came into songwriting. I started to write stories that things that I couldn't put into words, I was able to put into music. Different hard experiences that I've had, that tough times that I've been through, or just tapping into things in the world that are going on that might be really difficult to speak, but music is that vehicle for authentically sharing or even transforming that energy of these really dark experiences. So for me, it's an important part of my journey. I don't think that has to be true for everyone. Everyone has their own artistic journey, but authenticity is kind of why I'm doing it in many ways. So it's sort of the driving force for me.
Now, in your bio, it says that you have dark and politically conscious lyrics, which I love. Why did you venture in that arena?
Well, that's a good question, because I think that for me, it's about speaking the truth of what I see. And I think art can do that and be sort of a mirror to society about what do we see as wrong, and how do we mirror that back in a way that can help people reflect or to process it. So for example, you know, one of my songs that you mentioned, New Angels, that I just released an acoustic remix of, it's really about a shooting that I witnessed in San Francisco. And it's a very, you know, incredibly traumatic moment for, like, obviously the families involved directly, but having witnessed that and thinking about, you know, gun violence in the United States and like what that's all about, and how that's also coexisting with all these other things that are going on, like with climate change, with just poverty. It's almost overwhelming when you start to think about how much suffering there is. Right. So I wrote this because I really wanted to remind myself and others that even when it looks so bleak, there is the possibility for hope, and that that's something that you can never lose. And for me, that's so important because it can feel almost like we're up against an impossible task to try to heal the world that is so dark and so broken. So that's why I chose to write about those things, not because I think that you have to dwell on the darkness, but rather you have to look at it and face it in order to overcome it.
What's interesting to me, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this whole dynamic with the social impact message songs, because that's basically what it is. I think as a whole, the music industry doesn't understand those types of songs. And I say this because, you know, one year I entered one of my songs in a songwriting contest, and I'm like, well, we don't know if this is chartable. But what they don't understand is sometimes you create music, a lot of artists create music, it's not about charting. It's not about the sales. It's about how we affect people in our lives, how we affect the world. What progress can we see by singing the things that we sing? So they don't understand this whole idea that it's just not always about this whole fame game, but about making a difference. And I had to tell the contest that, because I always music is subjective. Everybody's not going to love your stuff, and there's going to be a lot of people that love your stuff. But they have to start understanding that that music evolves over time, and that there are truly people that are capable and are doing great things with music that are impacting people's lives in a positive way without the whole aspect of fame. It's like I always look at independent artists that write. Their writing is deeper. And I always say that I don't like to poo-poo on the mainstream artists. But I think Bieber's "Yummy," which I think is the dumbest song. But and I can't stand the video because it just makes sense to me. It's the same type of song over and over again. And then when I look at an artist, I'm like, I see so much creativity and I see so much deepness. And I hope that someday that they truly understand social impact message songs that we're trying to bring about here in this world. It's just crazy to me. It's an interesting dynamic that is out there. What do you love most about being an artist?
I love the creative process, and I love collaborating with other people. I think it's almost like a magical thing to be able to bring together like different skill sets, different instruments together to create something new that captures, a mood or an emotion or a feeling. It's just endlessly fulfilling to me to be part of that. And it feels like you're part of something. Like it's not me creating, it's me discovering something that is in the ether. And I don't know if you've been watching the Beatles Get Back movie, or documentary, but there's so many examples where it feels like they're just tapping into something and pulling it out of the air. Like it's just this magical process. And I love the way it depicts songwriting because it often feels like that.
Now, who are your musical influences? And out of all of them, who would you like to perform on stage and why with on stage?
Oh, so many. Well, the Beatles certainly shaped me as they did generations of people. Right. I think some of my idols in the, looking back at that time are also like Carole King, Joni Mitchell, like the singer-songwriter woman who, is actually really amazing to see women at that time kind of stepping into that role more and starting to have their voices heard in songwriting and in the music industry. So those are definitely, some of my, Etta James, oh my gosh, amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So many just over the years. And I think more recently, I just have a very eclectic taste. Love, Labyrinth, one of my favorites. Maggie Rogers, I love Tori Amos, Fiona Apple, like the 90s rocker girls who really started to be big in the alternative pop space. Nirvana, just so many. So it's hard to, I think I learn a lot from just getting exposure to a lot of different types of music rather than just, I'm not like a one genre type of person.
So speaking of that, so how would you define your music in the genre world?
Yeah, I think I used to be, when I first started out a couple of years ago, I was really more in the electro pop genre where I was bringing in a lot of almost like dance beats and some hip hop beats together with strong vocal led songs, so kind of in the electro pop space. And I think over time, I'm more drawn to bringing more acoustic elements in and less electronic. So I'd say it's moving more into like the alternative pop and bringing in, like my most recent song, I brought in some amazing live string players, for example, and I just think that adds so much. and focusing, but still kind of maintaining those pop, electro pop beats, which I think is a really cool combination, but it's a little bit different than kind of where I started, which is definitely more on the electronic side. So I play piano, and my songs are typically have the piano in them. And strings, I'd say, are the two instruments that I most heavily gravitate towards in terms of how to create what I'm trying to express. Mm-hmm. But definitely have like a more traditional pop structure in terms of the songwriting.
Okay, so you're a versatile artist still.
Trying to be. It's always a learning journey, right? Every day we become better than we were yesterday.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's sometimes I listen to my songs, and I still like them, but I'm like, oh, my God, you've grown so much, Natalie. Myself like that. I'm like, yeah, you did your thing there, but this is, I love this.
Yeah, exactly.
How far we grow. You know, I love jazz. That's my favorite. And then my first album was like a pop jazz album, and I've done pop and I've done Americana. Right now I'm stuck in Americana. I love the singer-songwriter folk vibe. I like the storytelling genre. But sometimes, like other people that I've interviewed, we don't like to have to say that we're a genre. Why can't we just say, I'm an artist, I create. That's the bottom line. I do my thing.
Right.
My thing. And I don't think we should be boxed. I'm trying to get that out there. Now, we're going to play your song, You Angels. Tell us what that's about.
Yeah, so this song is really about how we maintain hope when everything looks dark. And I originally released it a couple years ago, but then I decided to do this remix with some live orchestral elements because I felt like the message and the reason I wrote it is so relevant given the pandemic and just everything that we're facing. So I decided to, bring my new lens to it, and that was really fun to just be able to remix it in a totally different way.
I love it. All right, let's play it.
Broken lights and concrete squares, hurried bodies everywhere, ash flowed from a lone man's fire, trying to tell the world my hearts are bound in barbed wire. Hearts are bound in barbed wire. Stop 580 highway. Find cemeteries, chart cafe. Around home warming every day. Work hard, hustle, settle safe. Our hearts are
Beautiful. I absolutely love. I could hear that in a film. Do you do things?
Thank you. I haven't gotten into it yet, but I'm trying to learn as much as I can because a lot of people have said that to me, and so I'm like, okay, maybe I should look into this.
You definitely should. Either this week or next week, I can send you a list of places where you can submit your music.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely have a voice for it, and the sound. I mean, I could hear that in a movie, documentary, whatever, but I could definitely hear your voice in it. So you definitely should try to do that. That's where you really can make some money. The streaming is just not happening. I mean, you can make a
I know.
But it's not working. So what is your songwriting process like? And if you get writer's block, how do you deal with it?
So, yeah, that's a great question. And so it started out with this amazing process that I'd recommend to anyone who gets writer's block. And it's from this book called The Artist's Way, if you've ever read it.
Yeah, no, I know about that book.
Okay. Yeah, so there's whether or not you love the whole book, but there's an actual exercise that is stream of consciousness writing right when you get up, just writing like for 20 minutes straight without looking at it, no grammar or anything, spelling, just go, flow. And I thought, before I was a songwriter, I thought, you know what, I don't really have anything to write about. And then I started doing that and I realized, oh my God, I am so wrong. I have so much to say, and it just all came through in this kind of way where when you just wake up, you're not as critical of yourself, and so you're more able to tap into something that's really deep and inside further than you're used to going. So that is an amazing tool for any kind of writer's block.
Okay.
These days, I don't use that as much because I start on the piano and I actually start building like chord structures and writing different instrumental pieces first, and then I write the lyrics. So I'm kind of reversing the process that I used to use, but both are amazing tools to be able to come up with something that inspires you and that you feel like, needs to be said or needs to be shared in some way.
Yeah, writer's block annoys me. I will sit and stare at the screen and the piece of paper for the longest time and say, why aren't you coming to me? But, I figured that when I get the worst writer's block is when I'm trying too hard to fit a certain standard, in the sense that, you have verse, chorus, verse, bridge, verse. And I'm always like, why are you trying to do that? Because that's so not you anymore. And sometimes I still do it. But I like to write more like in a poem form.
Nice.
Sometimes my chorus is just like one. It could be one word.
Yeah.
I like to be different, and I like to use words you don't normally hear in a song, or a phrase that you might not normally hear in a song. And I start out with the chorus, and then I work around that and just throw the words on the page, on the screen, or on the piece of paper, because I'm still archaic. I still use paper. And and then it comes to life when I decide not to be so stringent. And what I've discovered, though, I was at a songwriter session and for country music, and they're so adamant about rhyming. And I said, why? I said, isn't the point to tell a story? They say, yeah. They're like, yeah, but we got to rhyme, and you can't use this word again. And did it? Oh, I said, my brain would explode trying to rhyme all the time, because there's moments where I want to say something and I can't find the rhyme. I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to write it this way. This is me. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. I mean, so.
Yeah, you can break the rules.
Yeah, I'm a rule breaker. So Where is the honest place that you've ever come up with a song, if there's any?
Oh, so many. Yeah, I mean, one of my favorites was I was taking this train from London to Paris,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just struck with this line. I was thinking about just like the history in London and Paris, and just, I don't know, I was like on some kind of just intoxicated by being there, thinking about mortality and death and all this stuff. And I just started realizing like I wanted to write a love letter to death. And it hit me because I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, that's one of those things that just hits you, you know? Like, I've never heard that before. Like, nobody really writes a love letter to death. You write a hate letter.
Right.
So it really became this, like, song called Never Had a Lover So Cold about death and our relationship to death and how we're terrified of it, but it also helps clarify what's important. And so it was definitely one of those moments of like being in the context that I was in. It really helped me tap into something.
I really like that. I love that story. It's so unique. But Amy came out with a different type of song, which I love. That is what this is all about.
Yes.
I love that. So I'm going to play your song. I chose Ocean from on Spotify. I chose that because it has over 800,000 streams on Spotify.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So how did you come about with Ocean?
So this song I actually wrote early on in the pandemic. So it's a good one. I felt like there's so many things going on and like so many things for us to process when it's first happening. Like, what is going on? What does this mean? What I had like grief, fear, whatever, uncertainty. And so I was really writing this about how our emotions can threaten to overwhelm us. Like they can be like waves, you know, coming at us like, oh my gosh, how do I even contain all this intensity? So that's why I wrote Ocean. And yeah, it seemed to strike a nerve, I guess, because it is the best performing one that I've ever done.
Is that's what you call it, best performing one? Damn, over 800, close to 900,000 streams. That's pretty damn good.
Thank you.
All right, let's see it.
Try to live on the surface of my skin, touching without letting it in. Pretend my heart was paper thin. Said I was like moonlight for a little while, made me feel alive. I was pulled under by the changing tide, My heart
I can see why that's your most popular one. That's a great song. My God, you definitely need to get into sync.
Thank you.
It's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Which of your songs do you like to perform the most, and why?
I love Ocean, the one you just played, because it's slow, but it also has like a dance component. So I really like getting into that energy and being able to dance on stage.
Right.
It's really fun.
Now, what are 3 things that you wish you had known before you got into the music industry?
Well, yeah. I guess number 1, that don't focus on the numbers, focus on the real connections with your audience.
Amen.
And yeah, there's so many, like playlisting scams and things that are trying to market music that just don't do anything. It's like,
right?
Who cares about any of that? It's really about building these relationships. And once I started to learn that, that's when things started to really work, because people recognize that connection and they want to have that authentic connection, right. And they don't want to be sold something, they want to have an experience.
Yes.
So that was one really important thing. I think the second is, people are going to doubt you. People are going to say, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Why are you going into art? Like, this is crazy. You're not going to make money. You're not blah, 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 blah. And if you know that going in, it's much easier, because then you can kind of realize that you're going to get that backlash.
Right.
And it's just a normal part of the process. It's like, you have to believe in yourself, and you have to stick with that and really have confidence that, you might not know everything now, and certainly you're always going to build your skills, but you have to believe in why you're doing it, and that is the guiding light through all of the doubt and people saying that you can't or you shouldn't. And it's like, you got to cut through all that and just do what your heart says.
Yep.
And I guess the third one is boring, but just have contracts. Use contracts with everything. Clarify things in writing. Don't assume that people have good intentions, because it's a business like anything else. And so you have to protect your assets and treat it like a business, and use all the professional tools that come along with that. And don't just say, hey, we're just, hanging out here. It's like, you got to put the structure around it.
I agree with everything that you said. I think number 1 is key. Authenticity is so important in the music industry, although there's a lot of fakeness. But authenticity is so important. I think that's the one big thing that we've learned because of the pandemic, is that people are craving authenticity because of everything we've been through, with the elections, the George Floyd, everything that's come out, things that have always been here, but have come to the surface. And people are like, my gosh, they need something, and all that stuff about fake news and stuff like that. People want the real. They want real. They want something that they can relate to. They want artists that they feel like they could DM and say, hey, Tess, you know what? That song, You Angels, it really got to me. I just wanted to thank you so much. It helped me throughout my day. This is what the world wants. This is what they need. Because during the pandemic, one of the things that I saw, I plan to release the song at the end of January, but I wrote a song about the pandemic myself, and it was more about a person that's an extrovert having to live introvertedly by themselves in a room, in an apartment. And so,
can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, it's weird. I like to write weird songs. It's totally different than I've ever done. I was Googling like dark Americana songs, and then I found that there's like country gothic. I mean, yeah, country gothic, which I really, I was like, oh my God, I love that. I got to do something like that. But that people went through a lot, and they needed to relate. And the thing that you came out of the pandemic is knowing that human touch is very important. It's extremely important in our lives. You know, just being in the same room with somebody else is very important. You know, when the whole thing came about, this pandemic, the first thing that I heard was from the UK. This guy couldn't deal with being by himself, and he ended up committing suicide because he could not get the idea of being by himself. So
totally.
It's sad. But there are a lot of lessons learned through this whole dynamic about, you know, all of us as a whole. What is it that we'll do for other people in our world? You know, people always talk about patriots and stuff like that. And I tell people, I'm honest. I don't like the vaccine. I didn't want to do it. I was fighting it for the longest time, but you know, I actually did get sick in last December, and you know, and I have a lot of the effects of it, and I just don't want to get it anymore. Although now it doesn't even matter if you're vaccinated. It does matter because it prohibits you from getting really sick and dying. But I just want to be part of the process. I want to be part of the positive process. And I think like with music that you write, you are the positive process. You are what we need out there in the world. You know, it's not just, you know, love songs are great. And we'll always have love songs and breakup songs and I hate you songs and stuff like that. But when you're trying to make a difference, it's so much more beautiful because you're trying to be part of the process of what's going on. You know what I mean?
It's about, how to bring us out of this.
Because there's a lot of people that need it. Not everybody has somebody in a room with them, or they have a pet in a room with them that is helping them through that. So music, again, is our superpower. I'm getting a t-shirt that says, music is my superpower.
I love it. I'll buy one.
All right, I'm going to do it. One last thing. What is a statement, an affirmation, a prayer, a phrase that you like to use to push you throughout the day if you need it?
There's always light that is possible, even when everything looks completely dark.
Amen. Amen.
I would say that in the darkest day of the year, December 21st.
All right. That is perfection. I love that. I have to put that somewhere. I got to put that somewhere. I got to say, Tess Posner, she said this. Thank you so much, Tess, for being on my show. It was truly an honor. I definitely have to do an IG Live with you. We got to set that up someday. Probably in the New Year sometime. We'll do it. We'll talk more about this being positive beings in this chaotic world and trying to bring a new normal to this world. But thank you so much. You're a bright light. I will definitely send you that information for the sync stuff because you definitely have to do it. I'm just telling you that.
Thank you. That means a lot, and thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed this conversation and everything that your show is all about. It's great. Keep doing it, and I look forward to connecting in the new year.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody. This was Chatting with Nat with singer-songwriter Tess Posner. You can find her on IG, Tess Posner Music, FB, Tess Posner Music. Website, www.tessposnermusic.com, and she's on Spotify. Yeah, over 800,000, close to 900,000 streams for Ocean, but you got to check out her music, New Angels to Help. You got to check her whole catalog out because she's just amazing. Until next time on Chatting with Nat. Chatting with Nat is a podcast for independent women seeking to speak their truth and to break down barriers. We host honest conversations that help to guide and empower women. Speak your truth and set yourself free. Let your voice be heard.
Love your